Welcome to Hoops and Headsets, a brand new podcast with a complete focus on women's basketball, hosted by women's basketball commentators. This is episode 1, the first of hopefully very, very many, although I don't know if my co-host today will be so happy with that quote. But yeah, diving into our EuroLeague Women's Final Six, that's what our first few episodes will be about. And joining me to do the deep dive on the Final Six is Shona. Hey, Shona, welcome to our new podcast.
I'm excited. I mean, shout out to women's basketball. And we've been talking for years how we think they deserve more attention. So I guess if anyone's going to do it, it's got to start somewhere, and it's going to be with us.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I think about whenever we bump into each other, so us commentators, we kind of fall into each other once a year, twice a year in tournaments here, there and everywhere. And we end up almost having a podcast when we sit down and chat anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're sitting in the media
Yeah.
tribune between games and all we're doing is not recording a podcast episode. So it just seemed to make sense to stick a microphone in front of us again.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, we're breaking down teams, we're giving our thoughts that maybe we're incorrect, but it's our opinion. And it always comes back to the same thing. We love women's basketball and we want it to get more attention, especially here in Europe and internationally. And we have an opportunity to do that. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Women's basketball on the rise. And I think everyone, obviously, Kristen not here today. She's flying out to the States for her new job with the Liberty. But I'm sure she'll be joining us in future episodes. We're all kind of the same mindset, right? This game is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It deserves far more spotlight. It deserves far more attention. And the game only grows if we create discussion around it. And hopefully that's what we'll start. And anyone tuning in, if you have thoughts, please feel free to comment on our socials. Be polite, but feel free to make comment on our socials if you think we're right or wrong. It's all good. Join in the discussion. It will help the game grow, that's for sure. So our first episode is going to focus in on Team 1 of the 6 at the Final Fours in Zaragoza coming up in, as we record it, a few weeks' time, but as it comes out, it'll probably be the week before. A team that you know pretty well, Lond. And the first question I have for you around Lond and the Final Six is obviously a historic moment for the club. How big is it for that club to have made their first ever Final Six?
It's enormous. I mean, if you've ever seen a lawn game or had the opportunity to be in Montmarsan and see one live, you will realize that this entire city, it's not a big city, but this entire city supports the basketball team. And they're going to be there in Zaragoza as well. But it is a family club. It's always been a family club. It's still a smaller club when we look at all these other EuroLeague teams. But the steps that they have made over the years, they've done it in a right way. They have been realistic about their goals, and it's not, okay, we have all this money, we're going to invest it in this year and cross our fingers and hope for something great to happen. They have built the club step by step, year by year, financially, with players, and this was the next step that they needed to take. They've won the French League, they've won the French Cup. What can you do next? Well, it's to get to the Final Six of EuroLeague, and they've been able to do that. And it's incredible for the club, for everyone involved, the players, the coaching staff, but mostly the fans, because they have backed them since year one. And now they get to experience this incredible event that we call the EuroLeague Final Six.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I didn't realise, right? I've not been there. It will be on my to-do list of coming to visit you at some point down there. 31,000 people, the population. The next nearest in the Final Six is Girona, who have 108,000. And then you're into, places like Zaragoza, even to the extent of Istanbul. How do you think that shapes the club? You're kind of saying it's a community club. Is that where this kind of joy and this success has come from, that it is small, everyone knows everyone, it is a very different vibe to a Fenerbahce or a Galatasaray?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is it shows you how small it is. Basket Lawn, they have sold out numerous games in a row for years now. It's not, "Oh, okay, big teams coming in, they sell out." You can't get a ticket to these games. I mean, there's over, I think it seats, let's say 2,600 maximum. That's, forcing the issue. They have over 2,000 season ticket holders
Wow.
for EuroLeague and the French League.
Yeah.
And, on top of that, they have hundreds of volunteers as well. And because, it's a small gym, I guarantee that they could sell out something bigger, but we're in a small town, like you mentioned, just over 30,000 people. There's nowhere to put a bigger gym, but if there was, I think, the sponsorship, the partnership, and the fans would be more. And I mean, every time Basket Lawn plays at home, it's the thing that is talked about. It is what you do on a Wednesday or Thursday night and Saturday on the weekends. And it's just, it's incredible to be around that, to see it. And it wasn't always like that. I coached for 6 years here as an assistant, and we always had good fan support. You always had the volunteers. And just the last couple years, people have bought in. And it's also the accessibility of the players. They are recognized. And the players that Basket Lawn recruit are also very, very good human beings outside of their skill level. And they engage with the fans on, when they're at the market on Saturday morning, people are coming up to them. They can't go anywhere without people coming up to them, being proud of them, wanting to talk to them, but they're also accessible. And I think that's why the supporters, the fans, they feel connected to these athletes. It's really special.
Yeah, that creates longevity and sustainability, right? You're saying, looking at those numbers, so just over 2,500 fans, there's 30,000 people in
Yeah.
the town, in the city. Just extrapolate that out. If that was Istanbul, that would be like 100,000 people coming to a game, right? That's the kind of
Yeah.
level of importance
Support.
the team
Yeah.
holds in that town. That's amazing. Obviously, Zaragoza isn't a million miles away. It's actually a relatively close game. It's I had a
Yeah.
quick look. I did a Google map. It's a 4.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
Are you thinking that you're going to get an awful lot of Basket Lawn fans heading their way down for that quarterfinal?
I mean, the rumor is that they have bought 1,000 tickets, and the club
Wow.
bought 1,000 tickets, and they're gone. They're sold out. So I think there will be quite a few buses to heading to Zaragoza on that quarterfinal game. And it just shows, it's not just because Basket Lawn plays at home. They want to follow, they want to be there in success, and they're there to support the players when they don't come up with the big win either. So it'll be really exciting. I think if they could have bought more tickets, they would have. But I mean, obviously this is like the hottest ticket in Spain, in Zaragoza right now. The gym's going to be sold out every game day.
That first quarterfinal is setting up to be ridiculous with regards to atmosphere. Obviously, leading into it, before the draws were made and all that kind of stuff, I was looking from the outside going, oh, imagine a Galatasaray-Fenerbahce kind of game. That would be bonkers. This quarterfinal between Zaragoza and Lens, the crowd is going to be unreal in that gym.
It is going to be so exciting to experience for the players, for the staff, for the fans, because I mean, you're going to see a lot of white and blue, and you're going to see a lot of red and white, and I think that's exactly what you want. And it just shows you also how much the game has grown, because I'm not sure we would have had that 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago.
Definitely not.
And people are behind women's basketball right now, and they're showing it, they're proving it, and they're coming to games.
The thing that makes me most excited about that, and we're kind of getting away from the long conversation, but I don't think it's a trend. It's not a fashionable thing. I think they're discovering the women's game and going, this is really different to the men's game. And actually, I really enjoy this as almost a completely individual sport in its own right. It's played in such a different way. And, the likes of Lens, they've clearly discovered that as a town and jumped on that. And that's why it's so intrinsic and so, put above so many other things. Obviously, big Lens following going with them in Zaragoza. How do you think that's going to impact the players? Because it's a road game. Most road games, basketball isn't like some football teams where you're getting huge traveling support.
Mm-hmm.
What's the impact on the players? You know lots of them personally. How do you think that will change their mindset, their performance, their preparation, everything going into this?
I think if anything, it just gives the players a little bit more motivation. They know that they have their fan base behind them and, they're going to support them no matter what. It's not the first time for a lot of these players to have to travel somewhere and have a lot of Basketball supporters there for them anyway. Some of them have been at Bercy for a French Cup final in Paris, and that they rent out an entire entire train to take fans
Brilliant.
from Montmarsan to Paris for a game. You leave at like 5 a.m, you're home at 11, midnight, and they're used to traveling. And I think if anything, it doesn't put pressure on the players. It's just, you know what? We have people backing us. Maybe it's going to feel like a home game and give you a little bit of an advantage.
So taking out the fact of the crowd and the following that they will likely have, at least 1,000, if not a few more that have snuck tickets through other channels, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure there'll be a few dots amongst the sea of red in that quarterfinal. What's the importance of the game? What role will that play for this Lens team? Because yes, making a final six as an individual athlete will be huge, but representing a club that's there for the first time, like you say, is that added motivation? Is that added pressure? How do you think that one's going to play out?
I don't think it's added pressure because, you look at this roster of Basketball, they've played in finals. And that's an advantage for them. They've lost some, they've won some. So they know what kind of pressure it takes to play in a big time game. Yeah, it's a EuroLeague game, and they haven't been in that situation necessarily before, but they've been in pressure situations and they've won when they needed to win. I mean, what's interesting, both these teams, Zaragoza and Basketball, split wins during the regular season. They both won on the road. I don't know if mentally, you go into that as a Basketball player saying, well, we've already won here. And that game had thousands of people and we'd had less fans. Now we have more fans behind us. So it's really interesting. It's going to be so exciting.
Super interesting. Now, without doubt, this is kind of the one that's on the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
It's just so exciting to think how this one's going to play out because it could be a really even game. The second question I have for you, though, focusing in a bit more specifically on a particular player, and I don't think it's any surprise the player that we're gonna discuss here, but how integral is Leila Lacan to Lens' chances at this final six?
Since Leila has arrived at Basketball last year, her game has only progressed. It's only improved. She's so talented. And, all players are going to have off nights. And even when she has an off night, she's productive. So she has grown in a player where maybe she's not knocking down her outside shots. And so what is she going to do? Well, she has to attack the basket. She has to try score around the rim. She has to try and get to the free throw line. And the one thing that she can always control is her consistency defensively. And that is what she has done all season long. And, she is a cornerstone of the defense of Basketball, and she comes ready to play game in, game out. And she knows that she can control that. And she knows that she's quick, she's long, she's talented defensively. Will it be amazing if she has one of her spectacular shooting nights, like when they upset Fenerbahce at Basketball? Of course, that would be great. But if she can't control that, because sometimes the ball just doesn't drop, she has grown as a player this year where even if it's a hard day at the office and she's not scoring as efficiently as she would like, she still figures out a way to help her team win. And
It's really
that is a
interesting.
player.
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's not getting hooked on what's my go-to. It's what do my team need from me right now. The thing that I find interesting is kind of she was originally positioned as almost this defensive specialist to a certain degree, that she was one of the best on-ball defenders. She plays super aggressive, always hands in passing lanes. I can imagine going against her as a point guard is just the worst case scenario because your brain is constantly being kind of kept busy with what she's doing, let alone being able to see the court in front of you. Her game this year has changed loads, it feels. Over the last year, 18 months, it's changed to become, I'm happy to be a focal point now. I'm happy to be the leader on both ends of the floor. It hasn't phased her. And she's still so young. This is the bit you look at her, you're like, yeah, she's 24 maybe. You almost put her in the same category of as like an Astier. And you're like,
Yeah.
she's
No.
not. She's still got so many more years of even more development to come. Looking at her stats this year, 12.6 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, played all 15 games, only playing 22.6 minutes per game. That's a very lawn thing. I looked through the box score. It's a nice, even split. Players are getting good minutes pretty much throughout the entire roster. If it's a close game, will Lawn lean into her more? Could we see her? She hasn't played 30-plus minutes this season in a EuroLeague Women's game. Could we? Or will you know Coach Barren really well? Will she stick to that rotation of I want everyone to get good minutes constantly all the way through to the final buzzer?
I mean, I think we'll see Coach Beren doing what she does. I do think heading into that fourth quarter, though, you go to win. And you need Leila Lacan on the court. Of course, her backup, Marie Pardon, who I think has had an excellent game.
Yeah,
I'm surprised she's
really
not up
has.
for the defensive award as well. But she's really had a great consistent season. If she's doing well, great. You play Marie Pardon, and then you can rest Leila Lacan a little bit more during those first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And say, all right, are you ready to play the last 8 minutes? Because you only played 15 minutes in the first or something like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be all you. And, it's Julie's philosophy as a coach. It's something that she believes in, the way that Basketball plays, especially, the defensive effort that they put in. You have to give 110% when you're on the court. So if that means you can only do it for 3 consecutive minutes, great, do it for 3 consecutive minutes. But this is what the coaching staff is asking. You'll come out, you'll get a little bit of a break, but you'll go back in. But we need you to have the intensity, both ends of the court at 100%. But crunch time, she's going to be on the court.
Yeah, she has to be, right? She's the one that's going to have ball in hand when it comes down to those critical plays at the end of the game. So I managed to, it was good because obviously a lot of our commentary is remote. And you get a feel for players, but you don't get to see their entire game because lots of stuff is happening off camera. Okay. So obviously commentated on her in Lyon and managed to catch up with her after the game. I was just amazed at that progression and how aggressive she is constantly. Even when she's off ball defensively, she's all over the place. She just doesn't stop. I chatted with her after the game. I said, good luck at the Final Six. I see you're down for loads of awards. I'm sure you're going to walk away with one of them. And I kind of flippantly said it. And then I realized she's up for MVP, Rising Star, Defensive Player of the Year. She'll probably feature in one of the teams of the season. At the age of 21, I know what I was like as a 21-year-old. Don't get me wrong, nowhere near a pro athlete. So my mindset might have been a little bit more juvenile. There's no way I would have coped with that kind of limelight, plaudit, expectation. Leila, her personality, she seemed really chilled and a little bit embarrassed by it all. How would she cope with that? What's her personality reaction to that kind of adoration almost?
I think Leila, she just wants to play basketball. She doesn't care about the accolades. They come because of what she does on the court. It's not because of her personality. She wants to win. She cares about her teammates. She cares about her coaches. And she cares about playing the game the right way. And she doesn't need hype. She doesn't need, someone to tell her amazing, and she doesn't need to celebrate enormously. She's so down to earth, and she has a lot of interests also outside of basketball, which I think really benefits her and keeps her level-headed. And all these accolades, people talking about her, doesn't go to her head. She's very grounded, and I think that makes her a better player. And it's something that I love about her. And sometimes you have to almost remind her, like, Leila, you're the best player on the court right now. Just take over. Oh, really? Yes. You almost need to remind her how good she is. And it's such a great personality trait, and it makes her the player that she is. So yeah, she has a lot of accolades, and if anything, she's going to be a little sheepish and shy about it because She doesn't care about those things. She just wants to win. And, we talked about her basketball progression. It's almost, part of her personality as well. Like it doesn't care. She will do whatever is asked of her to try and help her team win. And if it's the dirty work and the things that go unnoticed, she'll do those as well, just as willingly as, go ahead, we need you to score 30 points.
Yeah, it's super interesting around Leila and that progression. And just in my mind, just flicked then, obviously those individual accolades, like you're saying, I'm just playing basketball, I'm here to win games. With that in mind, if she is there at the end on that Sunday in front of probably over 1,000 Lyon fans in Zaragoza and she gets to lift the trophy, does the team accolade mean more to her, do you think, at that stage? Is that something that will be driving her more than those kind of individual spotlights?
100%. Absolutely 100%. I mean, I don't know what it's like in other clubs, but basket lawns, you don't get a bonus for an individual accolade. You get a bonus for lifting a trophy as a team. And, that's the basket lawn mentality. It's about team. It's about winning as a team. And, the most important thing to every player, not just Leila at Basket Lawn, is controlling what they can control, putting themselves in a situation to win, and playing basketball the right way. And, that's as a team, and it's been successful. Do they have enough firepower? We'll find out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big one, right? And that leads us lovely. Perfect segue to the final question. So we've been all super positive and lovely and fluffy. We are going to be a bit more serious now, and we will have this side to hoops and headsets throughout. There's no getting away from it. Lyon are the lowest scoring team at the final six. How much should that worry us?
I think they struggled a lot in the early part of the season. And, they were not in the rhythm offensively that they needed to be in. So they pulled off wins because Basket Lawn will always be prepared defensively and might not be the prettiest game. They might win 66-62, which we've seen them do throughout the season.
Yep.
And so they're going to be locked in. They're going to have a great scout defensively. And as the season has progressed, though, they've done a much better job scoring. You've seen Musa come alive second part of the season. They can rely on Julie White to help them get points when they need. Everyone who's come in off the bench, which is very common at Basket Lawn, needs to contribute. They need to contribute offensively, but your mindset is always defense. I understand to win games, you have to score more than the other team. But I do think if you can frustrate that other team and limit what maybe is easy scores for them, which Basket Lawn does a pretty good job of taking away, if it's a team that's a great offensive rebounding team and they have second chance points, or a transition, semi-transition team, that's going to be a big focal point in their scout, and they're going to try and take away those points and force teams to have to score differently. And it gives a team like Basket Lawn, who does not score a lot, a chance to win the game because they're going to get it done defensively. I do think, they have been better in the French league as well as far as scoring goes, but I do agree with you. This is a team who could put up 22 points in the first half. Well, you only put up 22 points in the first half. It's hard to win a game. So they have slowly been figuring it out as the season has been going on, if you look at them statistically.
Yeah, for me, it felt like the players worked out to lean into their strengths. So I referred to it in the commentary when we were in Lyon for Musa for Nigeria. It's like Musa land, that mid-range, short corner two, the elbow jumper. She's not trying to do anything out of her comfort zone. She knows where her spots on the floor are. She gets herself there. And it's felt as the season's gone on, you've seen more and more of that. Bouchier spotting up, Pardon, like you're saying, finding her spot. Oita going to the basket strong and being they're leaning into their strengths more and more. And kind of as a team, they seem to be finding each other in those right moments rather than trying to force things a little bit too much. With that in mind, though, they only average 68.4 points a game. Fenerbahce are 83 points, Girona 76, Galatasaray 76, Zaragoza 73, Raya are about 69, so not far off where they are. Does it come into the mind of coaching this team where intensity is for Lorne to be successful? Does it come down to them having to force it to be a slow scoring game? Is that a proactive thing that you're doing? So if the tempo of a game or the scoring rate starts to increase, which happens against teams like Fenerbahce often, do you intentionally try and slow the game down, just draw it down into a much lower paced game?
Yeah, I think you have to. If you are, let's say, a less talented offensive team, you want to try and slow down the game and have less possessions for your opponent. And the only way you can do that is if you try and slow it down, run longer offenses. And, do I think that Basket Long go into a game thinking, okay, we're going to slow it down, limit the possessions? No, they don't go into a game like that. They want to go in, they want to run, they want to get early opportunities. They're going to go aggressive. You're open, shoot your shot that you're comfortable with, not, anything outside of your comfort zone. Like you said, Musa Land, that short corner, not asking her to shoot something more difficult, but you're open and this is a shot you can make, take it. And then as the game progresses, and if those shots aren't going in, that's where you see, I think, Basket Lawn play a little bit slower unless they're sure to get a good look early in the offense. Then they'll play a little bit faster. But I don't think they necessarily go into the game saying, you know what, we want a game that's only 50 possessions total.
Yep.
No, that's, that's not enjoyable. No one likes to play like that either. And you can't have success with that mindset. So, first intention, you can score easily. Go ahead, score as quick as you can. If not, ball's not rolling the way you want it to, yeah, slow it down, play longer possessions offensively, and make the defense work, and make the defense make a mistake at the end of a possession instead of only having to have them defend 2-3 actions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like that. I like that mindset of using your shot clock to the fullest and almost using it for the other end of the floor as well. Make them work, lean on them, bump cutters, make them lose their energy and pay all that attention defensively. And it should make your job defensively an awful lot easier. Are we expecting Lorne to be a bit more high scoring in these final six, or are we expecting, if they're able to beat Zaragoza in that quarterfinal, will it be in the 60s? Is that what we're thinking?
I mean, the way that both these teams defend, Zaragoza is also a very good defensive team. They get into passing lanes. They're a typical Spanish team. They take risks, calculated risks, I should say. And they'll go for steals. They'll be annoying. They'll get touches on passes. So for me, I think it's going to be a very interesting defensive matchup, even though they play defense differently. So I really would not be surprised if we see a game in the 60s, because the way that these two teams defend, it's kind of what you would expect, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it feels like it's going to be that way. And for me, lucky enough to be commentating on it, I'm looking forward to it because it will be that chess match.
Yeah.
You'll see players probing and finding points in the game and weaknesses, and coaches having to react and kind of clog up those holes where there's been a problem. And it feels like a 40 minutes where it's not, even if a team gets out to a double-digit lead early on, the game's not decided. Some games you're like, oh, this game's over pretty quickly, but you just feel like there's going to be a real roller coaster back and forth. I'd be amazed if it got to a double-digit lead at any point. I think this could be a 6-8 point game for the entire 40 minutes and come down to that final minute in what will be an absolute pressure cooker environment. With that in mind, putting you on the spot, is Zaragoza the worst matchup for a quarterfinal for Lorne, with it being their home final six, as it were? Out of the other quarterfinalists, obviously Rhea and Girona, would there have been a better option for Lorne to face up against, do you think?
I mean, you're heading into a gym that's probably going to have, 9,000 fans?
Yep. More, yeah.
Screaming against you. I think Girona and Venice would have less fans there. You would probably have the advantage as far as fans go.
Yep.
You are walking into a fire pit a little bit in a way, but this is also why you play the sport. You have to be mentally tough. You have to be able to shut out the outside noise And, you know, I think as an athlete, you want to play in that kind of a situation as well, in front of, fans, whether they're cheering for you or cheering against you. I've been in Zaragoza. I think their fans are very respectful as
Mm,
well, and they enjoy good basketball.
yeah.
So, I don't think it's going to be a bad situation, but could there have been an easier matchup for Basketland? Yes, I think so.
It's when you talk about that as a player, it must be, like you say, there must be some games where you're like, I really can't be bothered with this one. You're top of the table and you might be playing the bottom team have really struggled. You know it's going to be a relatively easy win. It's a road trip. You're like, oh, I could do with the day off not doing this. But surely this is the game that, as a kid growing up, when you're standing on that empty court and you're kind of visualizing standing in front of a huge crowd. These are the moments that
Yep.
all that blood, sweat, tears, and unnoticed effort is for. That's the entire point of all those reps in the practice, right? Is to get the opportunity to play in these big games. And yeah, it could be an absolutely huge game. Obviously, the Zaragoza game is huge, and really difficult. And it's going to be a horrible question now, so I apologise. Can Lorne go all the way? Do they truly have what it takes to get to Sunday's final and take the win, or is there a feeling of we've reached the final six? That's a pretty good achievement. If we can sneak to the semis, that would be brilliant. But do you believe that they have the firepower to get it done?
Do I believe they have the firepower to get it done? Oh, that's a tough question. I don't, I would not have imagined them being able to beat Fenerbahce or
Mm,
Galatasaray. And they
yeah,
did.
yeah,
And they did. And then, also, the return game in Fenerbahce, I mean, they were right there for 30 odd minutes
yeah,
as well. And, Galatasaray, I'm sure, pushed them into overtime on game day one. It's just they time and time again, they people underestimate them.
yeah,
And the beauty about sport, and I truly 100% believe this, and I think it's why a lot of people watch it and a lot of people love it and play basketball, anything is possible. Absolutely anything is possible. And there's a lot of games this year that have happened, not just basket lawn, but we would not have imagined that team winning, and they won.
yeah.
So can they play 3 games in 5 days? Is that what you're asking? And
Yeah, that's another
continually have
question, right?
to raise their level of basketball? Why not? I
Yeah,
mean, why not? And why not do it this year? And they're not just going there for a quarterfinal game. They're
yeah,
not packing for one day. I
yeah.
think they believe in themselves. I think the players believe in the coaching staff. And I know that they're going to be incredibly well prepared for that game against Zaragoza. So, I
You've
think
got
their
a ticket in the
chances are
lottery,
just as
right?
good as anyone
Yeah.
else.
Absolutely. For me, looking at Lond, and they are, obviously we get asked to do predictions and stuff like that. They are my nightmare predictor because it's week to week. One game where you're like, yeah, they'll find this easy. This is a 20-point win, and they trip over it and they kind of fumble their way to a loss. And then the next week, like you say, they go up against Fenerbahce and school them for 40 minutes. And you're like, I, I don't get this. This is so difficult to work out now. And I think that's the thing with Lorne. They can beat any team in this competition. No two ways. They've shown it all season. They have to be on their day. The issue is they need to be on their day for 3 days now. They've got
Mhm.
3 games left to go. And like you say, they either have to play at their best every game or gradually just keep increasing
Yeah.
that pace. I think if they can get through this quarterfinal, they'll be relatively confident because they've beaten the teams that are in the semi-finals already, right?
Yeah.
So you would be looking at it going, well, we've beaten that team and we've beaten that team. We know how to beat them. We know the style of game we've got to play. We know their weaknesses. We know what work. I think the quarterfinal is probably the biggest hurdle, weirdly. I think once they get through that hurdle, they'll have much more confidence. And then it literally does feel like you are a couple of games away from winning. And you just have to look at Praha last year. Similar vibe. I don't think anyone, well, I didn't predict them to win the title last year. I don't think anyone did. Anyone that had romance in their soul, maybe, for Coach Hakova. But no one picked them to do it, and they just delivered big performances. And I feel that Lens could be in a similar situation. They've just got to break their way through this quarterfinal to get there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I agree with you. I think if they can get through the quarterfinals, they should have more confidence heading into that semifinal, and upsetting Zaragoza on their home court would be a reason for you to feel good heading into the semifinals. So yeah, you made some really good points.
Definitely. Perfect. Okay, well, that wraps up episode 1. It's one of 6, as you can imagine, being the final 6. We'll be back with episode 2 in the coming days, where we will focus in on Zaragoza. Thank you very much, Shona, for joining me today. Hopefully you enjoyed episode 1 of our podcast.